Welcome everyone to the Seeking the Bridge podcast. Here we are today for episode 4. I am Wilson Kong,
I am Francis Durr.
and we have a few guests with us here. We have Steve and Sandy Wong, as well as Vince Lee. Vince is my Tai Chi Hing. Steve and Sandy own the property where San Jose Wing Chun has been practicing there for years. Vince, can you give us a little background on your history?
I'm 65 years old, and my path of Wing Chun started back in '72, and I'm currently with Sifu Ben and Sifu Ken, and I've been at Steve and Sandy House, which they so graciously been hosting for 40 years, and I've been there for let me see about 39 years, and I actually started my Wing Chun with Ken back in '72, and I was there with Ken for about a year until he got married, went back to Hong Kong, and I stayed on with Bush Street for another year.
You started back, you returned to Wing Chun to Sifu Ben in 80, right?
1982.
82.
82. Yeah, I just started working. I didn't really stop practicing. I just started working out with people at work who found interest in this. I started continuing or upkeeping my practice as best as I could by working out with some guys at work when I moved down to Silicon Valley to work in '79. But speaking of Bush Street, that was located on Bush and Jones, and was actually only 4 blocks from the gateway of Chinatown, which is Grant and Bush. So I used to walk to Bush Street from my house where I was living at Pacific Street, which pretty much was the outer edges of Chinatown. So I used to walk a mile every Tuesday and Saturday just to go to class. It was a good place to be. It was very interesting for a young guy. I was 17. Most of the guys were there were older. And if you ask Sifu Ben, he always talks about how we always get busted lips and bloody noses every time we go to class because the senior guys would, hit us. But they weren't being facetious. They was just kind of like, hitting us just to show us how they can do it. They weren't mean. It was just how it was.
At Bush Street, how did you get introduced?
My good
to-
friend Randy Wong, him and I were inspired by the Bruce Lee movies that came out. The Big Boss. I think they came out about '72 or something like that. So one day we were in a bookstore browsing around, and then we happened to ask the bookstore owner about places to learn Wing Chun, and he had mentioned Ken Chun and Bush Street. As a matter of fact, that's where I first saw Sifu Francis when he was 3 years old, running around with his big brother Lawrence.
Yeah,
That was
that's right. I could barely remember Bush Street. But so when you started at Bush Street, though, my father was teaching, right?
Yes, along with Sifu Ken.
Sifu Ken. But actually, you had met my father before Bush Street.
Oh yeah, that was just
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was about I was 7 years old, and my dad had um, a herbal shop, and he was also an acupuncturist, a Chinese doctor. 3 doors away from Fong Fong, where Seafood Ben at work as behind a counter. So I used to go there and order ice cream, and used to always give me a kind of a hard stare because he didn't like walking way back to the store and scooping hard ice cream out of a 5-gallon bucket. So to this day, I can still see him in his black frame glasses and his white smock and
Did
kind
he
of a
give you
stern
small
look.
scoops?
Oh yeah, he gave me a scoop one day. The ice cream was so hard that he just scooped the outside of the ice cream. And when I was walking back to my dad's store, I noticed the ice cream was hollow inside. We still laugh about that 50 years later.
So when you started at Bush Street, did you recognize my father as, hey, you're that guy from Fong Fong's?
Yeah, I sure did, because I was only 7. And then who would know that 10 years later or so, I would be learning under him and under Sifu Ken at Bush Street. It was kind of a fun time.
And what was it like working out at Bush Street?
Well, on the most crowdedest night, I stopped working out for a moment and counted how many guys were there, and I counted 50 plus students all working out diligently in a sweaty bottom floor of the apartment building. Yeah, I would say maybe only 10 feet by 20 feet, or maybe 15 by 20 feet. Not very large, because we had there was a small backyard back there too.
What year was that?
1972. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember much except for people working out and a lot of smashed windows.
Yeah, I had the dubious honor of being pushed through one of them. Yeah, all the windows were broken, and there were three
Do you
sets
remember
of.
who shoved you through the window?
No, too long ago. I think it was a guy named Alan, though. If I remember vividly, I mean, faintly, it was a guy named Alan, who was a doctor, and he still comes to San Jose annual picnics once in a while too. So then Ken got married, I think, in '73, and he went back to Hong Kong, and then he left the school to the students, to the senior guys. So I stayed on another year, and of course Ben was there along with several other guys, including Eddie Chong, the Panam Wing Chun. And I still see these guys at functions like Ken's party, and then they're all looking pretty good. So we're all still good.
So yeah, that takes us over to Steve and Sandy. They're not only hosts of San Jose, the current hosts of San Jose Wing Chun for 40 plus years. They've also started learning from my father, Sifu Ben, around 1970, 74. So Sandy, you started first.
Yeah,
How did you get started in Wing Chun?
2 or 3 women and a couple of guys, people that we knew from the old San Jose State days. And at the time I was doing Naginata and with the baby on my back, Caleb was just born. He was like maybe 2, 3 months old. And Wing Chun looked like a good way to keep him on my back, work out, and not bonk him on the head. So I got to where everybody was just learning. So in just at the most doing Danshi, Hunsao, so the baby could
Can you see this?
Oh yeah.
crawl around.
Raise it just a little bit higher if you can. Oh, wow. Look at those studs.
When was that taken?
I don't know. I was looking on the shelf and there it was. I don't remember whose wedding that was.
After Sandy started, you started, Steve.
Yeah, copped out of babysitting is what he did.
I was studying with Lai Hong across the street in the women's gym.
Oh wow, long fist, Cheung.
Yeah, long fist.
Okay.
And I realized that it's long and leaves a lot of gaps. So I first started. I couldn't believe how fast it was.
So Wing Chun, you can just come in really quickly and.
Those styles don't have not enough time to recover.
And then, what did you think when you first saw my dad? This tiny guy.
And
teaching the
he
class?
was good. When we started with Ken in the education building, which later turned to Burns Hall, which later got torn down and turned into something else.
It was at San Jose State.
God, there were a good 75 to 50 people in the education building as well. And I don't remember your dad. Was Ben there?
Yeah, I learned from Ben. I didn't learn from Ken. I learned from Ben.
But that was
in 70.
after he took the class, because
Ben,
he didn't.
Ben took over the class for Ken.
Yeah, when Ken left.
Well, Ken was still coming in because I remember Belinda. She would never come in, but she'd be sitting in the car waiting for Ken. And eventually, I think he was in the process of turning that class over to your dad.
Yeah. I see. What was it like learning during those days? Was there a lot of people? Was it
like before? You're supposed to do your first set first,
right?
And then you do your second set, and your third set. If you do your third set, then you would do walking, and then you start with your Dan Chi. So the ring around the room, because everybody just stand with your back to the wall, right? Stand, do your set, and then he'd walk over and just start. Ken would start at the corner of the room, and then go all the way around. Ben did the same thing.
Work with each student all the way around?
And touch everybody's hands.
Oh, that's great.
And he would continue to do that. If you were late to class and you got in at the wrong end of the line, you missed out. Because there were too many people. There were just too many people.
So there was a lot happening at San Jose State during those times. It was kind of turbulent. I remember, I mean, I was just a kid. Something happening at the gym or something like that with the Taiwanese So basically, when I was a kid, I don't remember much. All I remember is that me and my brother went with my dad and my mom to the event center, and there was some kind of event going on with the Chinese and our Chinese Student Association, I think, and something erupted in the audience, skirmishes, and then my father told my mom to get the kids and go to the car. So I just remember coming out to the car, getting bundled in with my brother and my mom, and then all of a sudden my father went back in. So maybe you could fill in some of the gaps as to what happened that day.
The car, wasn't it a yellow Volkswagen?
It's an orange Volkswagen wagon.
Yeah, yeah. That I remember.
So what was happening? Was there a big fight going on?
So China had just gotten recognized, 1972, Nixon, right? Recognized China as being a nation, finally. There were the pro-Chinese and the anti-Chinese, like
No, not China. Pro mainland, and the other side was the nationalists, the Taiwanese.
Right.
So the people that were pro mainland were putting on the event. It was a Chinese cultural club.
Oh, okay.
And so at that time, though, the hot political thing was between the pro mainland and the nationalist Taiwanese. I mean, it was hot and heavy, and
people were getting killed in San Francisco and stuff.
yeah,
The mainland paper, or actually the Red Chinese, as they called them, then the Red Chinese there were the communists, and the others were nationalists. They didn't recognize it as Taiwanese and mainlanders. It was communist and
nationalists.
non you know
Nationalists, yeah. It
nationalists.
was a Kuomintang.
Kuomintang guys,
Yeah.
Chinese Six Company, those guys.
So some kind of fight broke out. What happened?
So Ming, who was the MC, and mind you, he's a librarian, right? So the Chinese Cultural Club guys are all pretty mellow. So Ming was on the stage, and in the middle of him saying something, these guys come marching down the aisle. They're all the Kuomintang guys. Somebody just grabbed his leg and pulled him off the stage, and then people started. It was just chaos after that.
And that's when I got
Somebody
rushed
tried
out.
to hit him with a pipe. Ming.
Oh wow.
Your dad and Sifu Ken were there with some of their practicing students, like John and Ken Wong. I don't know who else, but I had those two. I talked to them later, and yeah, they said, "Oh yeah, fight time, let's go."
They were more than willing to fight.
Oh wow.
And then Ken would correct them, you know. Like I said, Ken Wong had a guy by the shirt collar. He was pulling back a punch, and Ken was in his ear going, "Chung choi, chung choi."
That's hilarious.
Turned it around. Changed to this kind of punch
Right.
instead of this kind of punch.
Because they got beat up so much, I think that's when they asked Ken to teach them how to fight, teach them Wing Chun.
Oh.
That
Wow.
was the beginning of the class, the education building.
Oh, I see. I see. So when did you guys, start to come over to? I guess it was on the Hollycon Circle where we used to live in the backyard kung fu at my dad's. When did that start?
They went 2 days a week. One day wasn't enough, and it was a Tuesday or a Thursday. I don't remember. Probably a Thursday.
It was just right after the San Jose State.
1 day a week at that class, and then Saturday was at your house
Oh, okay. Okay.
at Hollycon, because there was not as uppity as where you live now.
What? You're talking about 1974, that time frame.
Yeah,
74,
Yeah.
75.
Uh-huh.
your family was a lot smaller then.
Yes, yes. Actually, I want to jump back to Vince for a little bit. Back in Bush Street, I remember hearing stories that, during that time in the 70s, the early 70s in Chinatown or San Francisco, Chinatown, there was a lot of unrest the Watching and I guess the Joe Boys, or some groups, gangs would be, a lot of fighting going on. But there, some of those from each group would learn from Sifu Ken and from my father back then. Do you know anything about that, Vince?
Yeah, a little bit. I was right in the middle of it, living right in Chinatown. And then, yeah, there were members of rival gangs in Ken's class. But, they kept the peace, just kind of kept their distance, but they also worked out. But, they didn't bring their aggressions to class. So they respected Ken and his class. So,
So it's pretty much, put all of your side things aside when you
yeah,
enter into the class, and
right.
then
Leave it outside.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of other stuff, with the mostly American borns against the foreign borns. And then remember the night of the Golden Dragon?
right.
I was literally maybe a block and a half away directly. I could hear all the sirens and all that stuff, middle of the night or early, early night.
Yeah, that was a big incident in Chinatown back in the early 70s where uh,
Yeah,
it was a mass shooting actually in the
yeah,
Golden Dragon restaurant.
right. And then you would hear about other people that you knew disappearing one by one. Maybe they end up in the river or someone gets shot or something like that. So, growing up in Chinatown just kind of makes you a little bit tougher.
Yeah, but it was neat how everyone put aside their differences when they stepped into the class.
Yeah, yeah. Except for some of the neighbors though, because sometimes like on Tuesday nights or Thursday or Saturday mornings, we will make a lot of noise, and then the neighbors didn't appreciate the noise, so they would throw bottles at us from the third floor, and we just retreat back inside and come back out when it's safe. Yeah, so
Remember
that was
that
it.
when you guys come back to practice here.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the same history repeats itself as Steve and Sandy's house because they have apartment buildings right on the other side of the fence, and we would get noisy, or used to get noisy.
We've been lucky to have nice neighbors.
We've had very nice neighbors.
Especially in the summer too, at Steve and Sandy's house, when all the neighbors' windows are open, and a lot of noise just travels right there. It's very adjacent to where we were working out. Yeah, we had to close the doors to the basement, and we also
Yeah.
have a curfew to be quiet. After 10 o'clock or so, we had to be quiet, which we
Mhm.
did our best to.
But in all those years, we've only had the cops called on us, what, once, twice?
And also a letter from the city too.
Yeah.
We had a couple letters from the city, but only one was about noise. The other one was about mistreating my dog.
Oh, I wasn't there for that.
Okay. Uh, that brings us to an interesting point where my dad had complaints at our house too, and just couldn't have that many cars in our cul-de-sac. So came to a point where we had to find a new home. And then, Steve and Sandy graciously offered, to this day, is very thankful. But why did you guys offer your home, backyard, to San Jose Wing Chun and for over 40 years?
It actually was the other house we were living at that time, but it was the same kind of layout and no basement. But that was always Steve's dream, to have a martial arts studio in his backyard.
It wasn't that. It was the
Yeah,
ability.
Yes, it was.
It was the ability to wake up and go outside and practice.
That's
You didn't have
nice.
to go home early because I drove a bus. You had to, if I were at your house, I'd have to leave a lot, an hour before you get home and back in bed and ready to go. Here it's just crash out. You're done.
I'm lucky to be close by to Steve's house. I'm only about a mile away, so that made it nice and easy to get to his class.
Yeah, even you. It's easy to get to the class, but when you have to get up in the morning and stuff, it's always a hassle.
Yeah, and parking in this neighborhood is a lot better than in the suburbs.
In the early 70s, though, I think I remember there were a good amount of women in the class at my dad's house. And I just remember, I was so young, but I just remember a lot of women being pretty aggressive. Was there something to that?
The original group of women that I started with. They didn't stay very long. They were our friends. Um, and so to try to keep the women more interested, your dad developed this quote unquote woman set, which was just, a series of different moves and punch across the backyard, punch back, kick across the backyard, come back, and, do all the moves most of the moves from first set. And then, but at Hollycon Circle, Candace, she was good. She was aggressive. And Ken Werner was there. They were
all good friends.
They're all friends.
That's nice.
And Gail,
Gail,
softball player.
Yeah, she was in high school then.
Sandy said you came across her before, right?
Yeah,
recently. So
she's still working at Lucky's in Santa Clara. So women were tough then. Gail was really tough. I mean,
really sweet. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just remember quite aggressive, gave the guys a tough time. You too. And I just remember, you working out with.
I was pregnant most of the time.
Yeah, well, yeah, and working out too. But or Kayla was there, and I remember somebody going through one of our windows as well.
He went through the sliding glass door. Your windows must have been really clean because he didn't know it was closed.
Yeah, he just walked through that.
Oh, no. Okay, no, another window.
Another window?
Yeah.
There's been so many. All our basement windows have been broken too. So I think it's mostly you guys and my kids. So.
Oh no. Do you guys remember like what was like you comparing like the 70s training to like the 80s training? What are your guys' impressions on what the differences were?
It varied. It changed back and forth. More aggressive, less aggressive, depending upon who was there. Because there were guys that, like now, like always, I want to learn to fight. I want to learn to fight. Well, yeah, but you don't know anything. How can you learn to fight? And you can't stop them.
Yeah. Well, in the 70s, I think back then, people were just starting to get more exposed to Kung Fu, like the TV shows and the movies, and people are just starting to get more exposed to that. So there may have been a different level of interest as well. And then in terms of the level of types of things that my dad taught, maybe it's a little bit different.
What I noticed, guys that would come because they would get beat up in bar fights and learn how to fight, and kids that would start because they were getting bullied in school. But after, like, if they stayed for at least 2 years of Wing Chun, they didn't feel the need anymore to fight. And I remember Wayne was back in Hawaii then, and I was talking to him because he had a lot of high school students. And he said the same thing. It's like they felt like they didn't need to learn how to fight it. Or, it's like they stopped being bullied, but nobody picked on them. I think it's a self-confidence thing, I don't notice that happening right now. But back then it seemed to be, to me anyway, it seemed pretty obvious.
Sophisticated, it's more sophisticated, more, less guns, less knives. Back then, mid 70s, 80s, it was all guns. Somebody would disappear and they'd come back with a loaded gun.
Yeah.
So, Kung Fu doesn't work well against guns.
No.
Despite the move.
So Vince, what is your take on what you saw back at Bush Street and then when you started up again in the 80s?
Yeah, well, we definitely saw, evolvement of how Wing Chun evolved. It started a little bit more rough, more aggressive, but we got into more of the, what can we call the soft force of Wing Chun. In fact, he wrote an article about that way back when, and how you would rely more on position and sensitivity and your timing rather than brute strength and power and position. So yeah, we saw how things change and how Wing Chun became more refined, and how you could use it more economically as it was designed from our forefathers. So we're getting closer to it, but it takes years and years. But you just got to stick with it and have good teachers like we do. and a good place to practice, like Steve's house.
So when Ken left and went back to Hong Kong, he left different people in charge of different areas. I think
Yeah.
Nelson and
Gabe,
Mike was in charge of
Mike,
San Francisco.
Bradford, yeah, all those guys.
Bradford was Sacramento. Eddie ended up in Sacramento as well.
And Sifu Ben too, of course.
Well,
But in
later,
San Francisco, it was basically Gabe, Mike, Bradford, Nelson.
Oh, okay, so that was
Ken.
after Bush Street
Yeah.
closed down.
After Ken got married and went back to Hong Kong, and they left these students in charge.
The second time he went back was when he got benched.
Right, the interesting
Yeah.
story about that.
During that time, we were at your dad's place on Hollycon. That every time Ken went and came back, there would be this special private class at your dad's place, and we would get ushered out.
Oh,
we,
wow.
we didn't get to stay, even though I knew some of the guys. I'd been there around long enough. I knew
Yeah.
who they were. I knew John, Ken, Eddie.
we never got to see.
We didn't get to see
your
what they
dad-
got to do.
Your dad and Ken did.
No,
Never saw them practice.
but we got used.
But it was inspiring to see something new that Ken would bring
Yeah,
back.
they would get all hopped up and ready to go,
Yeah.
and class got energized, and we got hit.
Yeah. Over the years, after you get hit so many times, you kind of learn from that too.
So
Yeah,
you guys were the living dummies.
Yeah, you
we
kept
were
us
living
going.
dummies. We do this now, not this. Why is that? That's a wrong question to ask. Why is this?
Because bam, that's why.
Really?
Yeah, I was the only smart one. I refused.
Yeah, you want to learn something, stay in front, and you always get pulled in. You stay in the background, then just kind of you miss out
If
on a
he
lot.
stayed in the background, he would look for the big tall guys.
The biggest tall guys.
What are some of your highlights that you just really memorable over the years from your experiences with Wing Chun?
I still remember the first time, maybe one of the only times, my gong sao worked perfectly.
What was
The
that? What
gong sao
happened?
circle. Yeah, and I was pregnant with Kaohe, my second one.
Showing a little bit.
A lot. I was like 8 months. I was walking out the back door and I was rubbing my eyes. I couldn't see. And John Wong came up and faked a punch to my stomach. And it was just automatic, gong sao. And he was like, ow, I'm just kidding. In a crisis, Wing Chun works.
All right. Maybe it's partially mother's instinct too, right?
Yeah, but
Oh, yeah.
hey, I was just so happy that it worked.
How about you, Steve? What are some of the memorable moments?
There's so many I can't even talk about it. I really enjoyed the Saturdays when Ken and Ben were there, and somebody would come over and go, I'm a brown belt from here, and I'm a this and that, and I've been learning for so long, and I came to touch your hands. And I remember more than one guy getting bounced around in the basement. It wasn't even as big as it is now.
I remember. Yeah.
And inevitably, he would take them around one of the little poles down there, and then park them back where they started. And they would inevitably always go, wait a minute, I wasn't ready. So he would say, okay, get ready. Are you ready? And the minute they said yes, he would come in and they'd go around again.
Just know that, yeah, Ken's hands are very impressive.
Your dad's hands were again as well.
Yeah.
Your dad specialized in feeding. He could repeat and feed and repeat and feed
He could break down and translate the concepts into real hands.
in Chinese.
Enough
And-
for us to understand.
How about you, Vince?
Well, I was just going to comment too on Ben, Sifu Ben, what Steve was saying. he took a lot from Sifu Ken and made it his too to make it work for a smaller guy. Because as you know, Ben is smaller than Ken, so he took a lot of that to make Wing Chun work for him in his frame. Was he was able to turn more and get the center, and he was able to hold his own with just the basic fundamentals of Wing Chun. But as far as highlights, I would say the last 40 years has been pretty much a constant highlight. Always looking forward to go to class, working out with the people because San Jose Wing Chun is very much a family atmosphere. It's kind of like almost like a social place too, which it actually is, but also a place for learning a lot of good things about Wing Chun technically and functionally. So it was great, and also seeing Ken and Ben show their stuff and learning to dummy and constantly pursuing diligently all the finer points of Wing Chun. And you never really get there because there's always another level to get to. So yeah, it's always been a constant challenge and a constant reward with a lot of frustration in between. So it's a good ride up and down.
And what's really unique to the relationship between Ben and Ken is, in Hawaii we grew up with the concept of you can't have two women in the same kitchen. And I told that to my friend who's a kumu, who's a teacher. And she said, "Oh, you think that's bad? Try having two kumus in the same kitchen," which is the same as what sifu and kumu are pretty much equivalent terms. So to have two sifus in the same space, shared space, like Sifu Ben and Sifu Ken, is very, very unusual to have that relationship growing actually to the level it has for how many 40 plus years, right?
50.
Yeah.
I think they've been in 68, something like that.
Yeah, 68.
Yeah.
It's been a nice ride because we got to meet all of the quote unquote famous sifus with names that have come through the area. The Chinese Kung Fu team, when they first arrived after China was recognized, and that first team that came over, they were really good.
The wushu, the first wushu group.
We were like the halftime entertainment. We did the dummy up there. No, you were holding a dummy along with Lawrence, Mike, and Carson, and I was doing the dummy.
In terms of famous kung fu people coming here from China, were there anyone of other martial arts that you guys remember meeting, like other styles, like maybe like Tai Chi or other northern Shaolin arts?
Wing Chun and Tai Chi guys was all.
Yeah, we remember with Steve, we had an international day about 25 years ago. We had people from all over, Arizona, East Coast, and local, all kinds of different seafoods came by and worked out at your place.
It was hard because I'm involved with the Kendo group and Dr. Hazard.
Yeah.
And he had groups from Japan of same level as Ken, but they would be in Kendo, Naginata, they were that same caliber people in their own arts. And there was a lot of that going on with both Sandy and I.
Hard to filter.
During that time. We've been very fortunate to meet world-class hands and world-class people.
So in terms of world-class people that you've met, in terms of Tai Chi, any names in particular that you guys want to bring up?
Choi, Chan.
Yeah, in San Francisco, we saw Choi twice at Far East Cafe, Far East Restaurant.
Choi was amazing.
Yeah. We actually had a chance to actually try to touch his hands.
Isn't it Feng or something like that? Or
Fang.
Yes,
Yeah.
Fang.
That he was amazing.
These are real Tai Chi people, not the old guy at the park waving his hand, right?
No, these guys were.
No.
Because when you think of Tai Chi, like I think of the old guys like waving their arms and the doing their meditation stuff. But what you're referring to are the real Chinese Tai Chi guys that have the martial arts fighting background, correct?
Yeah, these guys are hardcore guys who really know their stuff and really put their all into it and practice diligently.
They were all 65 or 70 years old when we saw them.
Yeah, Choi had asked me to try to push him, and I was only literally a foot away. When I tried to push him, he would disperse like smoke.
Yes.
You know exactly where I was coming from, and move out of the way. just in the nick of time. It was very impressive. It was like me falling into a trap door every time I tried to touch him.
So he asked Adrian to push him. And I said, wait, let me get behind Adrian. And I said, Choi, can you put it in my hand and I'd hold his back leg, back pocket over there. And he said, push him so the energy's here. And he'd go, "Ah," and I'd go, and Adrian go, yeah, it's there. My leg hurts. Then I'd go to the other side and he'd push him and put it over the other side just instantly. Able to switch it, put it up high, put it down low. He could send the energy anywhere in the guy's body just from the two hands. So he's pushing him, you know, like he did. Through those two hands on his chest, you could do that.
I think John Ho in our last episode with him, he mentioned something of that too. He said that it was pretty impressive. He said that if Bruce Lee had ever encountered that kind of power from the Tai Chi guys, he might have changed his thinking in terms of traditional like Kung Fu.
It definitely would have.
Was it like an eye opener for you guys to see this kind of thing?
Yeah, never saw that stuff.
All of Ken guys and all those guys said, oh, I want to do Tai Chi. I want to do this. Ken said, no, I want to do Wing Chun. Where is it in my style? How do I do my style like that? And that changed to the soft. He was aware of it, kind of, when he got benched. Now he had to figure out how to do it or what to do. And that was between Fung and Choi that he could dissipate that, synthesize it into what he does now.
That has influence on Ken's thinking about how is Wing Chun classified. It's not classified as an internal style really, but it's also not really classified as an external style. So somewhere in between is where Wing Chun is at.
I used to go to these PAMA camps, Pacific Association of Women Martial Artists, as an instructor. So they would ask, okay, is your style internal or hard style? And I go, well, I don't know, you know, it's Wing Chun. And she goes, let me see. This was a Tai Chi Sifu. And she goes, oh, no, definitely internal style. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And you know what she showed her? First set, oh yeah, that's definitely internal.
No, you know, she saw up 3 sets. She's like, oh, no, definitely internal style.
It sounds like the Tai Chi guys, in terms of like science-wise, has crazy amounts of training and master muscle, ligament, tendon manipulation that they've trained over the years to achieve that kind of level of control. That kind of energy is amazing.
Yeah, and Choi, he did a demonstration when we were at one of the parties. He asked several of the guys to place the palm of their hands on his back, and he would actually have like a roll of energy travel up and down his body, and you can feel the energy pass through your hand, and he would point to it as it would pass through his body. So he's controlling this energy, and you can feel exactly when it's going to pass your hand. You can feel it.
You can dribble it through his body and send it to you. That's what he did to Adrian that I talked about before.
Yeah, so it's really interesting what he can do with that.
The speed at which it comes out depends on whether I hurt you or help you.
Yeah, under his control.
He's still around, right? Because I heard Fang passed away in 2012.
Yeah, Fang's not around, but I think Choi's still around. I think
Choi is that old though. He was one of the 100 Flower guys, and he was stuck in a concentration camp, and his cellmate was a Yang Tai Chi guy. So Choi had done Chen style for a long time. So they just kind of hooked up. Standing meditation set, which is the basis of what Choi does, instructs now, is just that. Fang was a little different. He was truly a Chen Tai Chi guy. His thing was when you touch a good Tai Chi guy, you ended up on your back with your arms and legs in the air. He called it dead bug. He was sitting in a chair. We were at I don't know, you were there too, Vince, I think. Afterwards, we were at a karaoke place or something like, I don't know what it is. Ask him, Ken told me, this is the man, ask him whatever you want. And I said, first of all, can you move people if I stay away from you? And no, not gonna do that. That's bullshit. I can send it to you, but if you don't feel anything if you're insensitive, it's no effect on you. But he said, here, grab my hand. And in a minute, slowly and gently twisted me up, turned me on my back, arms and legs in the air. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That changed my whole awareness of Wing Chun. Ken kept saying, how can a small woman do Wing Chun? If you use the framework and the styles and the tools that we already have enough knowledge and enough presence. Actually, all of you guys have enough presence to achieve that.
In terms of like the students over the years, how would you like characterize how the students have changed over the years?
Depends on how the personalities come in.
There's always a variety of people.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
if strong personalities will prevail. The weaker personality, not the weaker, I don't want to say weaker, but
more timid,
will not bother with it.
More
yeah.
gossip.
Why am I going to bother? Because you have to always go through this big fight. Well, that's not effective. I don't get to see it on MMA.
I remember Sifu Ben saying one time, guys will come in that are physically, athletically gifted. They learn fast and they can learn this quick. But he said a lot of times, if a person is more dedicated with lesser physical or athletic ability, but if he's more dedicated, that person in the long run will become a better Wing Chun practitioner than the guy who learns fast and he's done, right? Fast and easy, and I learned it all, I'm good.
I've seen ladies though, and ladies learn a lot faster than guys because they seem to be more adaptable to Wing Chun.
Well, I think that more adaptable, less ego.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is when couples start as a couple, a lot of times when they stop coming and looking back, you go, I'm wondering if it's because the woman learns it faster, gets better at it faster, and then all of a sudden the guy is like, yeah, we don't have to go tonight. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it with a few couples, and I'm like, what happened to them? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few couples go through the doors. But yeah, they learn a lot faster. They do. The ladies.
Yeah, look at Emma.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Young and female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how you guys have seen my dad's hands and his hands, and according to him, it has changed also over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, he's more
Yeah.
economically, and structured as a unit, much more proficient. And I never seen him sweat in the past 40 years. He would go through everybody's hands, working out with everybody one by one, even in the hot summer months. He would never break a sweat or show signs of fatigue. That's pretty amazing.
The best story, I think Gary used to tell us, he remembers your dad turned, what year was that? His 50th or something. But anyway, he was still working and he came to class and he's like, okay, I've got this much time before I got to go to work. He took every single, from the senior students on down.
Everybody showed up. It was a Saturday morning.
Yeah, and he worked with each one, just allotted so much time per student till they sweated, was ready to quit. And he's like, okay, next. And he went through this whole line, not breaking a sweat, and then he's like, oh, gotta go.
It was like,
My job.
he had 45 minutes. Okay, I got to make
Wow.
sure I get a little bit of workout, 45 minutes. I also remember him on your birthday. If you had a birthday and you let him know it was your birthday, you were going to work. You were going to work out. He was going to do Chisao with you till you dropped. So that's one thing that has changed. You start with Danchi, Lopsao, Paksao, and then the Paksao would lead to double sticky hands. And then the double sticky hands would turn to Pum Sao, and then turn back to Gao Sao again.
That was still there when I started too. I think when I first started, those were like in 2011, 2012.
Yeah, he definitely had a program going, and it was good, very beneficial to all the students. To make sure, and he's very good at knowing where each student is at, according to their capabilities. and when or when not to show them the next thing, because if they're not ready, of course he won't show them. But yeah, but he was very good at knowing exactly where they were at.
What I noticed over the years is when we first started in the 70s, and it's changed, it got softer, and realized it when we went to LA and worked out with Steve Wong, and his hands are like what we had when we started in the 70s. His energy didn't evolve the way San Jose's, Ken and Ben's have. And that was, to me, was a striking difference in how that energy has changed.
Yep. Economy of movement, economy of energy, the true essence of Wing Chun.
Proficiency.
Yep.
Same words, same things
Mhm.
were said. It was learned in a different style and in a different manner.
Yep.
Like when you came, your hands were Bush Street hands, knew right away. Different
Yeah.
from the hands that we had done earlier. Ken used to have that Lansao, punch
Turn
thing
so. Yeah.
going, and he would, jam you to the wall.
Oh yeah.
Everybody would jam you to the wall, and then hold you. And he stopped. He stopped doing that over there to jam you once, double punch you, so that you would get that Jong effect, that back and forth.
Wang Dang.
Yeah, yo-yo effect. The emphasis was more on the sensitivity.
I
Too
think
much
when
work.
I went to Sifu Wong's place and I, got to touch hands with that group, very nice group. And then when I went to Hong Kong, yeah, there was like more similarities that I saw with the hands with Leung group in Hong Kong and Sifu Wong's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we started with.
Yeah.
they didn't. I think that's a progression of the class.
Mm-hmm.
Is you get a class and you get the, like I said, you get the fighty stage class, and then you get the older guys in the fighty stage class that go, oh, I don't want to fight, I just want to contain you, and they develop a little bit different hands, while those guys, and then the new guys coming in, they don't develop that fighty type hands.
Well, I think it's also the way that Ken changed the way he taught.
Right. His emphasis has changed.
Yeah. Whenever he
Yeah.
went back to Hong Kong and came back, there was a different element to his teaching.
Right.
I think that's what eventually.
Got
Yep.
handed down to us through
He
my
always
dad.
stressed position, sensitivity, and energy.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But always that. Elbow and knees, always elbows and knees. Ken and Ben always said that. Yeah, so we can credit a lot to Sifu Ken and Sifu Ben. They taught us a lot over the years, and we're lucky to be involved in all that and actually witness the changes, become part of this evolvement, how it evolved and how we take it along for a ride. So we're lucky to be part of it.
Ben and Ken have never really been separated and apart from each other once they came back, for long periods of time. Every week or 2 weeks, they're having lunch together,
Oh yeah, they always.
and they're all, and the topic is always Wing Chun, and always the class. This one and this one. What do I do with this? How do, that's what I assume, because I don't speak Chinese. So I assume that's what it is.
But the whole life is Wing Chun. My oldest son, when he was living in Hawaii, and I think Sifu Ken went out there to visit the class there, and so Keola had lunch with him and talking with him, and he came back and said, Uncle Ken, he uses Wing Chun in everything in his life. He goes talking with him about business and just different aspects of life, actually. And he said he uses Wing Chun in everything, not just, working out with the hands and all that.
In terms of the students that you've had in the past, Sandy,
Any interesting characters you've had that you seen come by?
Oh, there've been
Quite a few.
several.
Depends on the generation.
Yeah, but which era do you want to?
Just the highlights, maybe.
Who's
Just
the
how?
guy that studied with Bruce Lee? Came to study with Ben. Anyway, he was there, and they were in the gym, and this cop guy said, "Let's work out. I do Wing Chun too. I can do that." And the guy said, "Well, I do GKD," and he said he didn't want to hurt him, but the guy was such an idiot. The guy did a side punch, broke a rib. When that guy came in, he broke his rib. Said, "Okay, we're done."
Yeah, like what happened when that gentleman got punched? He said he had stitches on his
Yeah,
chest that
he
like
had
exploded.
heart surgery. Well,
Years ago,
yeah, but
Yeah.
he said he never could figure out what this lump on his
he had a
chest
big
was.
lump in the center of his chest.
Yeah, he said it was just a lump
No,
and
it
it
did.
hurt a little. And then he said when Ken punched him and this thing stuck out, so, and he was bleeding, so he pulled it out. He's like, "Oh wow, that was a suture they forgot to take out."
No, it was a suture. It was a gauze.
A
It was
gauze
a
or
huge
something.
gauze thing.
Oh,
It was something that was in
chest.
his chest that they didn't take out. And he's like, "Oh wow, now I feel better."
So
So he
instead
was
of a lump, it was a hole. And then he had a hole in his chest instead.
But he said it felt better.
So yeah, it healed over and stuff and mended. But
But
'Cause
he
Ken
had-
was doing a demo on him, right?
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I got that on
the
video somewhere.
camp. Did you ever go to a camp, Francis?
No, I
I
did
went
not.
to one. I went to the last one, and now
The
should have gone
last
to
one.
more because they were fun. They were great.
I talked myself into going to the camps and watching and doing all that, and I said those were all very interesting.
Yeah,
Very
non-stop Wing Chun, non-stop until 3 in the morning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 in the morning.
Yeah, and then it started again at 7:30 for breakfast, and then right after
7:30.
breakfast, non-stop Wing
And-
Chun.
People with hangovers.
Your dad is an early riser.
Yes.
No matter what happens, even at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, where we're finally, last story, and they go to bed, he's up at 6:37, walking around always. And so I always told the guys, I said, "You want some quiet time with Ben? Get up early. Nobody else will be up." And some of them did. The Florida guys did that. They got up early enough.
The camps are good connector.
Yes, well, we kind of continued after you guys stopped doing the camps when we went down to Southern California to visit Steve Wong at the time, Hawkins, Gary Lamb, and then those are the relationships that I will always cherish because I would have never gotten those to meet these like kung fu teachers that I had never imagined that were sitting right next to me. I remember calling Hawkins because I was like, "Hey, Francis, why don't we reach out to Hawkins because he should be right here, right? Yeah, get the phone number of my dad and call." I call him. He goes, "Hey, remember me? I met you at Sifu Ben's birthday, probably 2011. Yeah, I remember you. What are you guys doing out here? Oh, we're meeting with Sifu Siwal." He goes, "Oh, the mute deaf guy." I was like, "Whoa, that's not rude at all." And he goes, "No, it's cool. We're good friends. I'm just joking around." And I was like, he's a really Hawkins was one really funny guy. And he goes, "Yeah, tomorrow I'll join you guys." And he pops out of nowhere, and we're doing dim sum at the exact same place, at the exact same table, at the exact same restaurant, eating the same food. And he comes out with us, and we're working out with him. Then he goes, "Hey, you guys want to go to Gary Lamb's place? I'm very close with him too." And he follows us over to Gary Lamb's place, and it was just a fun adventure. Going at the time, he's still at school, so he goes like, "Hey, come out to my school later, and I'll show you some stuff." And then we went to his studio, and that was the last time we saw him at that studio. A year later, we visited. He shows up again. We still do the dim sum thing with Si Wong, and then he goes, "Hey, you want to meet Sifu Holding?" We're all friends with him too. And then all of a sudden, Si Wong, Hawkins, and me, I think it was a few other people, we pop up at Holding's house. And I'm like, this is surreal because this is the dummy maker that made jongs for Yip Man back in Hong Kong. One of Si Wong's students, he goes, "Hey, if you go to his house, there's a robo jong." What was a robo jong? Sifu Holding created a electric robo jong, and it was powered by an electric piston back in probably in the 70s or 60s. And we never knew what it was, so we were curious to see what it was. And next thing you know, Hawkins shows up too. We're all there. We're looking at it, and we're playing with this robo jong that he had back in Hong Kong. And it was cool because when he unveiled it like it was never been used for decades. So we saw one of our guys work on it and saw this guy's face light up because it was just amazing to see his jong being used again after this whole time of not being used for such a long time. But again, those relationships were because I learned it from you guys and the family and the cultivation of the people and what it meant to stick together as like a family, the ohana, the Hawaii spirit that both of you guys have spread over the years.
I remember that. I remember the Robo John when it was in Hong Kong, when people were talking about it then. Over there, it was like it's a mechanical piston. It was difficult because it was heavy. It was difficult to turn, but that's why you use your horse.
Yeah, it was a lot of timing too. If you misstepped one of those things, it would have knocked you off and into the wall, which is probably maybe a foot away at the time when they placed that Robo John.
Yeah, so it just basically what it does is it just moves back and forth. The whole jaw moves back and forth. Is it like gas powered or?
It was electric power, and he didn't go all the way. He said there was actually a few more notches he could have used, but he didn't want to hurt anybody. Because if you misstep just a little bit, that middle leg thing would have kicked you in the groin. And for the guys, that was not comfortable. And then on the other side, on the back, there was a Charlie foot kind of jong, or Wing Chun Kung Fu on one side, and you did Charlie foot on the other side. Both people can use it at the same time. I don't know what he ended up doing with it because I heard he passed away a few years ago. But
He was in his 90s, right?
He was in his 90s. His wife had just gotten back from the hospital from some sort of surgical procedure. I saw a video on YouTube. It was on a rooftop in Hong Kong about a year ago. So I wonder if that was the same one or someone else made a duplicate of it. But
somebody paid to bring it over. Somebody paid to take it back.
I don't know. Maybe it was interesting because I've definitely seen that firsthand, and that was an impressive piece of machinery. And I remember one thing he said Hawkins. He was just teasing him the entire time because the guy was in his 90s. Hawkins was like Sifu Ben's age. He goes, Si-Hing Hawkins, how are you doing? And then Hawkins smiles, says, yeah, I am a Si-Hing because I learned before he did. And then he goes, he's like, this Si-Hing over here just comes to my house and steals my my fruits, and he just leaves. And he looks at me, and he smiles, and says, yep, I just come here and take his fruit and I leave. I don't even say hi sometimes too. And I was like, it's just a comedic kind of thing to see this for guys that age, and it's nothing that I would ever experience if I never did Kung Fu. So especially with San Jose, that was a pretty cool experience for me.
At that time, and the time that was invented, that was Bruce Lee with the flashlight thing, to build speed. The light would flash and you'd punch it, or Bruce Lee had all these little things to work on his speed and work on his Wing Chun stuff, and so gadgets were all there. We have all the gadgets we need.
I would like to thank everyone, Steve and Sandy, Vince, for being here today and giving us such a great in-depth coverage of the history of San Jose Wing Chun and how it went from the San Francisco school from Vince's days, and how Steve and Sandy took over in the San Jose, graciously let us use their house and their basement, their backyard, and their garage to use this space to continue to learn Wing Chun.
Vince, Steve, and Sandy, very integral parts of the Wing Chun family that without you guys it wouldn't be the same.
Wouldn't be at all, especially seeing Vince with the Tai Chi Vince with all his knowledge and all that stuff from all the years put together.
We're lucky to be there. That's like what Cheung said, right? Lucky you found us, and we're lucky we found Sifu Ken and Sifu Ben.
So see, Francis, look at what you got to carry on now.
Big shoes to follow.
Just a little bit at a time.
As long as you continue to touch hands, no problem.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve, Sandy, and Vince.
Yeah, we want to thank you guys too for the opportunity to share our history with San Jose Wing Chun, and San Jose Wing Chun certainly wouldn't be the same without Steve and Sandy's place to be utilized like they're offering to us all the time. So it's great.
A little bit of aloha.
Well, it's a great chance for me and Francis to go through this, and you guys are telling us the stories, and we just want to give you guys a voice to voice your stories for everyone else to hear, since there's not a lot about the Luen lineage in the U.S. or given in English for anyone to understand that don't speak or read Chinese or Cantonese. So this is a great platform for everyone to share their stories.
Hey, thank you guys.
Thank you guys very much.
All right. See you later, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.